The coastal town of Haven's Edge clung to the cliffs like a stubborn memory, its weathered houses overlooking a restless sea. The air carried the sharp tang of salt and the distant cry of gulls, while the old lighthouse on the bluff cast its beam across the fog-draped waves each night. It was a place where secrets didn't stay buried long, where the wind seemed to whisper rumors through the narrow streets. For Claire Dalton, a 38-year-old high school teacher with a warm smile and a quiet strength, it had always been home. Claire had built a steady life here with her husband, Nathan, a local contractor whose easy charm had won her over 15 years ago. They weren't wealthy, but they were comfortable at kids, a modest house with a view of the harbor, and a marriage that had weathered its share of storms. Or so she believed. Lately, though, Nathan had changed. He'd grown distant, his laughter rarer, his evenings stretching late with vague excuses about project deadlines. Claire tried to dismiss it as stress construction was unpredictable. After all but the doubts gnawed at her. It started with small things. Nathan's phone, once left on the kitchen table buzzing with texts from clients, now stayed glued to his hand or tucked away. He'd taken to wearing a new jacket, one she hadn't bought him, its leather scent mingling oddly with a faint floral note she couldn't place. Then there were the nights he stumbled in past midnight, claiming a site inspection ran long, his eyes avoiding hers as he muttered apologies. Claire found solace in her evening walks along the rocky shore. The cold bit at her cheeks as she paced the water's edge, the lighthouse's beams slicing through the mist like a metronome to her thoughts. She replayed their last conversation, Nathan brushing off her question about a cancelled dinner with a curt, "Work's a mess, Claire. You know how it is." But she didn't know, not anymore. One chilly October night, restless and unable to sleep, Claire decided to tackle the pile of laundry spilling from the hamper. She reached into Nathan's new jacket, fishing for stray receipts or nails he often forgot in his pockets. Her fingers closed around a folded slip of paper. Uncreasing it under the dim kitchen light, she froze. It was a receipt from the Cliffside Retreat, a boutique hotel 10 miles up the coast dated 3 nights ago, when Nathan had said he was meeting a supplier. The charge was for a room, a bottle of wine, and 2 dinners. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The Cliffside wasn't a place for business deals. It was intimate, secluded a lover's escape. Claire's mind raced. Was Nathan cheating? With who? She thought of her oldest friend Julia, who ran the bakery downtown. Julia had been distant lately, cancelling their usual coffee chats with flimsy excuses. But no, it couldn't be her. That would cut too deep. Claire sank onto a stool, the receipt trembling in her hand. The house was silent, except for the distant crash of waves, a sound that now felt mocking. She could confront Nathan when he got home, demand answers, but what if he lied? What if he turned it back on her, made her feel paranoid? No, she needed proof. She needed to know how far this went. As Nathan slept upstairs, oblivious, Claire stared out the kitchen window at the lighthouse's sweeping light. Her chest tightened with a mix of dread and resolve. Tomorrow, she'd start digging. She'd check his phone, follow him if she had to, uncover the truth piece by piece. The sea roared beyond the cliffs, and in its rhythm, she heard a challenge she couldn't ignore. Because, whatever Nathan was hiding, Claire was about to find out, and it would change everything. Claire barely slept that night. The receipt lay crumpled on the kitchen counter, its presence a constant reminder of the crack forming in her world. Nathan had come home late again, slipping into bed without a word, his back turned to her. She'd lain awake, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how he could sleep so soundly while her mind churned with suspicion. By morning, her resolve had hardened. She wouldn't confront him, yet not without more evidence. Accusing him outright could push him further away, or worse, make him cover his tracks. No, she needed to be smart about this. She needed to know who he was meeting and why. As Nathan showered, Claire slipped into the bedroom and picked up his phone from the nightstand. Her hands trembled as she punched in the passcode their wedding anniversary. The screen unlocked, and she scrolled through his messages, her heart racing. There were the usual texts from clients, a few from their kids' school, but then she saw it. A string of messages from an unknown number, no name attached. Shipment arrives tonight, don't be late. Usual spot, 11 p.m. Keep it quiet, no mistakes. Claire's breath caught. Shipment? Usual spot? This wasn't about an affair, at least, not just an affair. This was something else, something that sent a chill down her spine. She glanced toward the bathroom, the sound of running water a distant hum. Quickly, she took screenshots and sent them to her own phone, then deleted the evidence from Nathan's messages. When Nathan emerged, towel around his waist, he gave her a tired smile. "Morning," he said, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. "Morning," she replied, forcing a smile. "Busy day ahead?" He nodded, pulling on a shirt. "Yeah, got a site visit up the coast. Might be late again." Claire's stomach twisted, but she kept her voice steady. "All right, I'll keep dinner warm." As he left for work, she watched him through the window, her mind racing. Tonight, she'd follow him. She'd find out what he was really up to, even if it meant stepping into the shadows herself. The day dragged on, each hour heavier than the last. By evening, the fog had rolled in thick, blanketing Haven's Edge in a damp, ghostly haze. Claire bundled the kids off to bed early, claiming a headache, and waited until the house was still. At 10:30 p.m., she slipped into her coat, grabbed her keys, and stepped out into the night. Nathan's truck was parked at the end of the street, just as he'd left it. She watched from her car as he climbed in and drove off, taillights fading into the mist. Heart pounding, she followed at a distance, the fog making it both easier and harder to stay hidden, harder to keep him in sight. He drove north, away from the town, toward the rugged cliffs that jutted out over the sea. The road narrowed, winding through dense pines and rocky outcrops. Claire's hands gripped the steering wheel, her nerves fraying with every mile. Where was he going? Finally, Nathan's truck slowed and turned onto a dirt path leading to an abandoned fishing dock, long forgotten by the locals. Claire parked a safe distance away, killing the engine, and crept closer on foot. The fog was thicker here, swirling around her like a living thing, muffling her footsteps on the gravel. She crouched behind a rusted boat hull, peering through the mist. Nathan stood at the edge of the dock, his figure silhouetted against the faint glow of a lantern. Two other men were with him, strangers, their faces obscured by hoods. They spoke in low, urgent tones, but the words were lost in the wind. Claire edged closer, straining to hear. "The next shipment, Grayson's orders, no room for error," one of the men said, his voice gravelly. Nathan nodded, his posture tense. "I know. I'll handle it." Grayson? Who was Grayson? Claire's mind raced. This wasn't about construction, this was something illegal, something dangerous. Her pulse quickened as she realized how far out of her depth she was. Just then, a twig snapped behind her. Claire froze, her breath catching in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head, and there, half hidden in the fog, was a figure watching her. Tall, motionless, their face obscured by the mist. Panic surged through her. She bolted upright, stumbling back toward her car, but the figure moved too, swift and silent, cutting off her path. Claire's heart hammered as she ducked behind a stack of crates, praying they hadn't seen her. Footsteps crunched on the gravel, slow and deliberate, drawing nearer. She pressed herself against the wood, holding her breath, every muscle taut with fear. The footsteps paused, agonizingly close, and for a moment, the only sound was the distant crash of waves against the cliffs. Then a voice low, almost amused. "You're not supposed to be here, Mrs. Dalton." Claire's blood ran cold. They knew her name. They knew who she was. Before she could react, a hand clamped over her mouth, and everything went black. Claire's scream died in her throat as a hand clamped over her mouth, the cold dampness of the dock pressing against her back. Her pulse hammered, but before she could fight, a voice hissed in her low and urgent. "Don't scream. I'm not here to hurt you." The grip slackened just enough for her to turn her head. In the dim glow of a flickering lantern, she saw him, a tall man with sharp cheekbones and dark, piercing eyes. She recognized him instantly, the quiet regular from the diner, always alone with his coffee and newspaper. What was he doing here, pinning her against the rotting wood of the dock? "Listen to me," he whispered, his breath fogging in the chilly air. "You're in danger. Nathan's mixed up with people who don't mess around. If they catch you poking around, you're done." Her stomach lurched. "Who are you?" she rasped, fear sharpening her voice. "Call me Jack," he said, glancing over his shoulder into the swirling fog. "I've been watching them Grayson's crew. Smuggling, money laundering, worse. Nathan's a small piece of it, but he's in deep. And now you're on their radar." "Grayson. The name hit her like a punch. She'd heard Nathan mutter it once, months ago, dismissing it as a work contact when she'd asked. "Why tell me this?" she demanded. Jack's eyes softened for a split second. "I owe someone a debt, someone who'd want you safe. But I can't save you if you keep digging. Go home, Claire. Forget what you saw." Before she could argue, he released her and vanished into the mist, leaving her trembling in the silence. The dock was empty now, Nathan, and the others gone, the lantern snuffed out. She stumbled to her car, Jack's warning ringing in her ears. Smuggling, money laundering. Worse, what had Nathan dragged them into? Driving home through the thickening fog, Claire wrestled with her thoughts. She couldn't unsee this, couldn't pretend everything was fine. But Jack was rather. Kids were at home, asleep, innocent. She couldn't risk their lives. Yet doing nothing meant living with a lie, a ticking bomb under their roof. When she pulled into the driveway, Nathan's truck was already there. He'd beaten her back. Steeling herself, she stepped inside. He was in the kitchen, pouring water, his face calm but his jaw tight. "You're out late," he said, eyeing her over the rim of his glass. Claire forced a smile, her heart still racing. "Couldn't sleep, took a drive." He nodded, but his gaze lingered, searching. "You okay?" "Yeah," she lied, her throat dry. "Just thinking." He crossed the room and pulled her into a hug. She sank into him, his familiar warmth clashing with the dread coiling in her gut. "I love you," he murmured. "I love you too," she echoed, the words tasting bitter with doubt. In that quiet moment, Claire made up her mind. She wouldn't confront him, not yet. She'd play the part, gather more clues, figure out how to protect her family. But she needed answers, and Jack was her only lead. The next morning, after dropping the kids at school, she headed to the diner. He was there, in his usual booth, newspaper open. She slid in across from him, her hands clenched. "We need to talk." Jack didn't look up. "I told you to stay out of it." "I can't," she said, voice firm despite the tremor in her chest. "My family's in this. Tell me everything." He sighed, folding the paper. "You're stubborn. Fine. I'm Jack. Used to run with Grayson drugs, weapons, human cargo. I got out, but not clean. Nathan's newer, handling shipments through the docks. He thinks it's just materials, but it's not. He's starting to see the cracks, and he's scared." Relief and terror hit her at once. Nathan wasn't a monster just trapped. "What do we do?" Jack leaned in, voice low. "I've got evidence enough to bury Grayson, but I need Nathan's help to finish it. He's got access. If we move fast, we can take Grayson down. If not, he'll take you all out first." Claire's breath caught. Betray a kingpin? It was insane, but it was a chance. "I'll talk to Nathan. Promise me my kids stay safe." "I'll try," Jack said, grim. "But Grayson's planning something big. We're running out of time." She left the diner, resolve hardening. She'd convince Nathan to fight back, to risk it all for their family. The fog had cleared, but the real storm was just beginning. Claire's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, the diner fading in her rearview mirror. Jack's words echoed in her mind. We're running out of time. She had to talk to Nathan tonight. No more lies, no more half-truths. If they were going to survive this, they needed to face it together. But doubt gnawed at her. What if Nathan refused? What if he was in too deep, too afraid to fight back? Or worse, what if he didn't want to? She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the road. The fog had lifted, but the sky was darkening, heavy clouds rolling in from the sea. A storm was coming, both outside and within. When she pulled into the driveway, Nathan's truck was already there. She found him in the living room, sitting in the dim light, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the table. He looked up as she entered, his face pale and drawn. "Claire," he said, voice rough, "we need to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. Did he know she'd been to the dock? That she'd met Jack? She sat across from him, her mouth dry. "I was about to say the same thing." Nathan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. "I've been keeping something from you, something big." Claire's pulse quickened. "I know." His eyes widened. "You know?" She nodded, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "I followed you last night, to the dock. I saw you with those men. I heard them mention Grayson." Nathan's face crumpled, a mix of relief and dread. "God, Claire, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this." "Then tell me everything," she said, leaning forward. "From the beginning." He took a deep breath, the words spilling out like a confession. "It started 6 months ago. A guy approached me at a job site, said his name was Victor Grayson. Offered me a contract, big money, to handle shipments through the docks. At first, it was just construction materials, or so I thought. But then I saw what was really in the crates drugs, weapons, cash. By the time I realized it was too late, Grayson made it clear, if I tried to back out, they'd come after you and the kids." Claire's stomach churned. "Why didn't you tell me? We could have gone to the police." Nathan laughed bitterly. "Grayson owns the police here. Half the town's in his pocket. I thought if I kept my head down, did what they asked, I could protect you. But it's getting worse. They're planning something huge, a major shipment, enough to flood the coast, and they want me to oversee it." Claire's mind raced. This matched what Jack had told her. "Nathan, we can't let this happen. We have to stop them." He shook his head, despair in his eyes. "How? If I refuse, they'll kill us. If I go along, I'm damning myself and you." She reached across the table, grabbing his hand. "There's another way. I met someone, Jack. He used to work for Grayson. He has evidence, enough to take him down, but he needs your help to finish it. If we work together, we can end this." Nathan's brow furrowed. "Jack? You mean Jack Harlan? He's a ghost, disappeared years ago after crossing Grayson. If he's back, it's suicide." "He's our only shot," Claire insisted. "He says you have access to something they need proof of the operation. We can use it to bring in the feds, someone Grayson can't buy." Nathan pulled his hand away, standing abruptly. "You don't understand, Claire. Grayson's not just a smuggler, he's connected. Politicians, cartels, you name it. If we make one wrong move, we're dead." Claire rose too, her voice fierce. "And if we do nothing, we're already dead. Look at us, Nathan. We're living a lie, waiting for the axe to fall. I won't raise our kids in fear. We have to fight." He stared at her, torn between love and terror. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken fears. Then, slowly, he nodded. "All right, I'll talk to Jack. But we do this my way, carefully, one step at a time." Relief flooded her, but it was short-lived. A sharp knock echoed through the house, making them both jump. Claire's heart pounded as she glanced at the door. Who could that be? Nathan's face paled. "I don't know. Stay here." He crossed to the entryway and peered through the peephole. His shoulders tensed, and he turned back to her, eyes wide. "It's Lena." Claire's blood ran cold. The Nathan enforcer Jack had mentioned, the one who'd been texting Nathan. "What does she want?" "I don't know," Nathan whispered, "but it can't be good." The knocking grew louder, more insistent. "Nathan, open up! I know you're in there." Claire's mind raced. If Lena was here, it meant Grayson was suspicious. They couldn't afford to slip up now. "Let her in," she said, voice low. "Act normal. We can't let her see we're onto them." Nathan nodded, taking a deep breath before opening the door. Lena stood on the porch, a tall woman with sharp features and a leather jacket that seemed to absorb the light. Her smile was cold, predatory. "Evening, Nathan," she said, stepping inside without invitation. Her gaze flicked to Claire, assessing. "And, Claire, hope I'm not interrupting." "Just a quiet night in," Claire replied, forcing a smile. "What brings you here?" Lena's eyes glittered with something unreadable. "Oh, just checking in. Grayson wanted to make sure everything's on track for the big day. No complications." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Everything's fine. Tell him I've got it handled." Lena tilted her head, studying him. "You sure? You seem a little tense. Maybe it's the company you've been keeping lately." Her gaze slid to Claire, lingering just long enough to send a chill down her spine. Claire's heart hammered, but she kept her expression neutral. "We're just tired. Long week." Lena chuckled, a low, dangerous sound. "Well, rest up. You'll need it." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Nathan, Grayson's watching. Don't do anything stupid." With that, she slipped into the night, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Claire locked the door, her hands shaking. "She knows something," she whispered. Nathan nodded grimly. "We're out of time. We need to meet Jack now." Claire grabbed her coat, determination stealing her nerves. "Let's go." They stepped into the storm, the wind howling like a warning. The game had changed, and the stakes were life or death. As they drove into the night, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that every shadow held a threat. But there was no turning back now. They were all in. Here is the last segment, crafted as a gripping and emotionally charged conclusion to a story. Claire stood in the dimly lit living room, the crumpled receipt clutched in her hand like a lifeline. The house was silent, except for the distant crash of waves against the cliffs, a sound that usually brought her peace but now felt like a mockery of her turmoil. Nathan walked in, his footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. He stopped when he saw her, his eyes widening slightly. "Claire, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." She held up the receipt, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "I found this in your jacket, a hotel receipt from 3 nights ago. You said you were working late." Nathan's face paled and he took a step back. "Claire, it's not what you think. Let me explain." "Explain what?" she snapped. "That you've been lying to me? That you've been seeing someone else?" He shook his head, desperation creeping into his voice. "No, it's not like that. I was meeting a client. It was a business dinner." Claire laughed bitterly. "A business dinner at a boutique hotel? With wine and 2 dinners? Do you think I'm stupid?" Nathan ran a hand through his hair, his composure cracking. "Okay, fine. It was Julia, but it's not what you think. We're just friends." Claire's heart sank. Julia, her best friend since childhood. The betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined. "Julia, how could you? How could she?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She needed to stay strong, to get through this. Nathan stepped closer, reaching out to her. "Claire, please. It was a mistake. I was lonely, and she was there. It didn't mean anything." Claire recoiled from his touch. "Don't. Just don't. I trusted you, Nathan. I trusted both of you." He dropped his hand, defeat written all over his face. "What do you want me to do? I'll do anything to make this right." Claire took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I need time to think. I can't do this right now." She turned and walked towards the door, grabbing her coat. Nathan called after her, but she didn't look back. She needed space, needed to clear her head. As she stepped out into the foggy night, the lighthouse beam swept across the sky, a beacon in the darkness. Claire walked towards the cliffs, the wind whipping her hair around her face. She stood at the edge, looking out at the turbulent sea below. In that moment, she made a decision. She couldn't stay in this town, in this life that had been shattered. She needed to start over, to find herself again. With a newfound resolve, Claire turned away from the cliffs and headed back to the house. She would pack a bag, leave a note for Nathan, and drive away from Haven's Edge, from the lies and the betrayal. As she drove out of town, the fog seemed to lift, and the road stretched out before her, leading to an uncertain but hopeful future. But just as she was about to leave the town limits, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Julia. "We need to talk. It's about Nathan. There's something you don't know." Claire's heart skipped a beat. What could Julia possibly have to say now? Should she turn back and confront her, or continue on her path to freedom? The decision hung in the air, as the story paused, waiting for the next chapter to unfold.